In this video, we're going to talk about the Ring of Fire awakening. Is a Pacific megaquake coming? There's been a lot of activity in the Pacific Ocean that has a lot of people concerned, so today we're going to break down what's happening. Let's get into it. The Ring of Fire is the reason why so many people around the world are afraid of earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. It is the most seismically active area on Earth, responsible for 90% of the world's earthquakes and 75% of its volcanic activity. This horseshoe-shaped belt stretches from New Zealand all the way up through the Pacific Islands, Japan, the Eurasian Islands, then down through Indonesia, the Philippines, the northern part of Australia, and finally up through Chile, Peru, and the western part of the United States. The Ring of Fire gets its name from the intense seismic activity occurring within it. If there was an earthquake with a magnitude greater than 8 anywhere on the planet, chances are it happened here. But what if I told you that something big is awakening along the Ring of Fire? You may not believe me at first, but after I show you these images, you'll change your mind. Now, unlike previous years, which have only seen an average of 14 megaquakes, quakes above a magnitude of 7.5, this year, we have already had 4, one of which was a whopping 8.2. That means that we are currently 3 times the global average of megaquakes that happen every single year. All this increased activity is leading some people to ask the question, is this the beginning of the end? In this video, I'm going to do my best to answer that. Before we can talk about whether or not the Earth is ending, we need to understand how the Earth works. Let's start with the outermost layer of the Earth, the crust. The crust is divided into 2 sections. The oceanic crust is where we find the ocean basins, and the continental crust is where we find dry land. These 2 parts of the crust are made differently. The oceanic crust is made deep under the ocean, where molten rock, known as magma, is created when rock in the Earth's mantle melts due to extreme heat and pressure. This magma is less dense than the surrounding mantle, so it rises and eventually creates new oceanic crust. On the other hand, the continental crust is formed by a process called granito, the gradual cooling of magma below Earth's surface. As we go deeper into the Earth, we find the mantle. The mantle is made of silicate rocks that are rigid but also flow over geologic timescales. Imagine if someone left honey out in the sun for a couple million years. The honey would remain relatively still, but if you were to look closely, you would notice that it slowly shifted and changed. The same thing happens to the mantle. Finally, we come to the core, which is mostly made of iron and nickel and is divided into 2 sections. The outer core is liquid and is responsible for Earth's magnetic field. And finally, the inner core is solid, despite being hotter than the outer core. This is possible because of the extreme pressures found deep within the Earth. Now that we know how the Earth is made, let's talk about plate tectonics. If you've taken any geology class, you've probably heard the term plate tectonics before. But if you haven't, let me explain. The Earth's crust and the rigid part of the mantle are broken into several large pieces called tectonic plates. These plates move around on the Earth's surface, and when they interact, they cause earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountains. There are 3 types of plate boundaries. The first is a divergent boundary, where 2 plates are moving away from each other. This often happens at mid-ocean ridges, where magma rises from the mantle and creates new oceanic crust. Next, we have convergent boundaries, where 2 plates are colliding. This often results in volcanoes and mountain ranges. Finally, we have transform boundaries, where 2 plates slide past each other horizontally. These boundaries are often associated with earthquakes. Let's look at the Ring of Fire and see how all this comes together. Along the Ring of Fire, we find all 3 types of plate boundaries. Take, for example, the Mariana Islands. Here, the Pacific plate is pushing underneath the Philippine plate. This is an example of a convergent plate boundary. As the 2 plates collide, the Philippine plate is pushed up, forming mountain ranges like Mount Fuji. When the subducting plate, in this case the Pacific plate, reaches the core, the immense pressure and heat cause the rocks to melt. This forms magma, which migrates up toward the surface. Eventually, this magma erupts, creating volcanoes. This is one of the reasons why the Ring of Fire is so volcanically active. Volcanoes aren't the only thing formed by plate tectonics along the Ring of Fire. Take the Eurasian islands, for example. Here, the Pacific Plate and the Philippine Sea Plate are pulling away from each other. This is an example of a divergent plate boundary. As the plates pull apart, magma rises from the mantle and creates new oceanic crust. This is also true of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which runs through Iceland. As the North American and Eurasian plates diverge, magma is created, forming new oceanic crust. The Eurasian islands and the Mid-Atlantic Ridge are examples of mid-ocean ridges. These are the most common features found along divergent plate boundaries. Finally, let's look at the earthquakes along the Ring of Fire. As we mentioned earlier, most earthquakes occur along plate boundaries. This is because as the plates move, they get stuck on each other. When they finally slip, it releases energy in the form of an earthquake. One of the most famous earthquakes ever recorded occurred along the Ring of Fire in Japan in 2011. This earthquake had a magnitude of 9.0, making it the fourth largest earthquake ever recorded. It was so powerful that it caused a tsunami that hit Japan's eastern coastline. The tsunami caused widespread damage, and over 15,000 people lost their lives. So now that we understand how the Earth works and how the Ring of Fire was formed, let's talk about whether or not something big is awakening along the Ring of Fire. Like I said at the beginning of the video, unlike previous years, which have only seen an average of 14 megaquakes, quakes above a magnitude of 7.5, this year we've already had 4, one of which was a whopping 8. 2. That means that we are currently 3 times the global average of megaquakes that happen every single year. All this increased activity is leading some people to ask the question, is this the beginning of the end? The answer is no. This is not the beginning of the end. First of all, it's important to remember that even though 4 megaquakes might sound like a lot, it's really not that unusual along the Ring of Fire. For example, in 2014, Chile had 2 earthquakes in less than 2 months, both above a magnitude of 8.0. So, while it might seem like a lot, it's really not that unusual along the Ring of Fire. Second, we need to remember that the Earth's activity isn't constant. There are periods of high activity followed by periods of low activity. We're currently in a period of high activity along the Ring of Fire, but this will eventually end. And finally, we need to remember that the Earth is a dynamic system. What's happening along the Ring of Fire right now might be completely unrelated to what happens in the future. That being said, there are some things we can do to prepare for future earthquakes and volcanoes along the Ring of Fire. First, we need to continue monitoring the Earth's activity. By doing this, we can better understand the risks and prepare accordingly. Second, we need to improve our early warning systems. This is especially important for tsunamis. With an early warning system, people could be given seconds or minutes to move to higher ground before a tsunami hits. Finally, we need to educate the public about what to do in the event of an earthquake or volcano. Many people don't know what to do in these situations, which can make things worse. Let's wrap this up. No, the Earth isn't ending, but yes, there's a lot of activity happening along the Ring of Fire. The good news is that we are prepared for these events and can take steps to minimize the damage they cause. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the Ring of Fire. If you did, please leave a like and watch another one of my videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.